Hey everybody, we are live at the Microsoft MTC here in Malvern, Pennsylvania. Here on a Wednesday night, I'm joined by Andy Schwam, and we have Rich Ross, as always, behind the camera, making everything happen. And I'm Chris Gomez here on the Dev Talk Show, where we talk about whatever topics are new and hot, and then sometimes even old, and old school experience, but also forward looking, and just the different viewpoints from the career paths that we've all taken. And so tonight we've got a pretty cool treat. We're going to take a look at a different way, I think, to work on a popular technology for the three of us. I mean, three of us have spent a lot of time in .NET. And certainly, if you watch this show, you know that we spend a lot of time at the Philly .NET user group, and so there's a lot of experience in the Microsoft space. But
ecosystem, as we call it,
right? The Microsoft ecosystem. But I think all three of us probably can think back to, oh gosh, maybe would I call it a more primitive time when we used to code, and the way you had to code when I was a kid, actually. And so I'm going to name some old computers that are in vogue today. Like, people like to go down and think about the VIC-20. The Commodore 64. In fact, the Commodore 64, I don't know if they're calling it the Mini or the Classic, but there's one coming out, or where you can buy just like a Nintendo Classic.
Yeah.
It's coming out. I honestly do not know how full featured it is, but I'm sure people are super excited to do, what was that again? Load *8-1. I don't even remember the command anymore.
So I didn't use that stuff.
You didn't use a Commodore?
Because I had friends that did,
yes,
right? I wasn't a computer guy then.
Oh, okay.
Like, my friends, some of them were dabbling in it, and starting to play around with that kind of stuff. I was just sort of on the sidelines. The earliest thing I used was, I guess, in school, in high school, and I'm old, so but I think we used like an Apple. What was it called? It was an Apple.
Oh, the Apple IIs.
The Apple II is what I thought it was called.
It was like,
and I
Apple
remember writing some sort of like go-to and stuff like that.
In BASIC, 10 print. My name is Chris. 20 go to 10. Common program that people would go to the mall and they would get on that Atari computer and somebody would type that. In fact, that's how I got started programming, was as I saw that Atari in the mall, and it said something like please enter your name, or please enter program name. I can't remember exactly what it said. And so everybody, including me, would go up to it and put in their actual name, and it would say syntax error. And you know what people would do? They'd walk away. Okay. And one day I saw an older gentleman walk up to it and type 10 print, my name is whatever his name was, 20 go to 10, and then he hit run. He typed run and he walked away. And watching it scroll, I'm telling you, that was the moment.
That was the moment.
I was a young kid, and I said, hold on a second. He made it do something.
So that was the first IDE you ever used.
But it wasn't an IDE.
Well,
right?
Okay,
and I didn't. And I also didn't know.
IDE is not the right word.
I didn't know how to break out of it, so I just watched it.
And I'll bet no one else knew how to break out of it.
I'm not sure.
For days.
I'm not sure. But and back then, this is how crazy it was in BASIC days. Is there was a time when I knew how to clear the screen on every different common PC. On IBM PC BASIC, it was CLS.
Yeah.
On TRS-80, it was call clear.
Wow.
On VIC-20 and Commodore 64, it was printing a character. So you did print CHR string, the $sign, but the characters were different, and I used to know which ones they were. And well, it was either line feed or character. It's crazy, right? So we didn't have an editor. You just typed in at the terminal.
What is it? It was what it was.
And we're not talking about key punches or anything that's some
true.
of the Some of the people that were my mentors talked about those days. Those folks were heroes, programming on switches, flipping switches, and getting a key card stack, a key punch stack just right.
I only watched the movies on that kind of stuff.
Did you believe it actually happened? It's like nobody actually coded that.
It's hard to believe that someone would have. I mean,
So, but I think if I could remember back, probably the first thing that would count as an IDE, an integrated editor, was Turbo Pascal.
Okay.
When I was learning Pascal, but I never really learned how to use the IDE. I never debugged in it.
Right.
I never set breakpoints. I didn't understand what any of that stuff meant. But at least when the program crashed, it would take me to the line that crashed. And that was actually a huge win coming from BASIC. Where you're just like, I don't know, oh well, it crashed. Good luck. But what about you? Did you remember any of the older IDEs or editors?
Yeah, I mean, so interestingly, I learned I learned writing Access database.
Okay.
And you could call that an
Was an
IDE, right?
environment,
It has its own, you know,
You build forms in there.
yeah. You
did
could
your
drag and
tables
drop
in there?
things,
Yeah.
and you could do different stuff in
Right.
there. I mean, I probably used some other stuff before that. After that, I was doing Java development at some point, and we might have just been using like Notepad or something like
Right.
that, or maybe Ultra Edit.
Oh, right. And you
Remember
could,
Ultra Edit?
and you still can.
You can put language support in
You
there.
basically say, hey, run this.
Yeah.
Which we're gonna see something similar to that today, I think.
Yeah, I feel like we've gone back to some of that a little bit. But
well,
I think I
it's
used
become popular again.
Yeah, it has, right? And then I moved pretty quickly. Oh, well, and then there was VB. VB6 had its own thing, right?
Yep. They had a designer and an integrated environment, and when you clicked on a button in a form, here was the code that was going to run.
Right.
When you clicked that button, code behind, which is kind of, I think some modern .NET developers see as a dirty word, but it was the way to do things.
It worked.
It worked.
You know, I mean, we're really quick nowadays. Some people are to look back and like judge those things and say, oh God, it was, you know. But here's the thing. We're sitting here today because of all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, it is what it is. Like, I don't want to like be, but it's funny when we look back on how you used the word primitive before and how somewhat, you know, inferior these things are. I mean, we may
come back to some of ththese things.
Yeah, I got into programming when there were already things like breakpoints.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I didn't have to like print out all reams of paper and try to look through, you know, I don't know. Like, it seems like it was a whole different ball game.
Yeah. I mean, I used some other editors for different reasons. There was a time when I was real interested in game development, and the Microsoft stack was kind of primitive there. People were still targeting DOS, and so there was this IDE. I don't know how many folks out there are watching on the video remember the Whatcom IDE, which was the gold standard for performance.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it was the standard for performance. And but then really what kind of changed everything was Microsoft and the introduction of DirectX. Not right away, but slowly but surely brought developers into the Visual Studio fold. Not because you had to use it, just because it was easier. Once again, as always, if you're on the Microsoft stack, it's always easier on Visual Studio, right?
Yeah. So, you know, easy's not bad.
No, it's not.
Right?
I mean, I remember...
it can be, but not necessarily.
I remember getting Visual Studio 97 on a student discount, because in those days, if you were a college student, you could get Visual Studio for, nowadays, we would consider an absolute steal. I mean, I want to say that I think I paid less than $200.
How many discs was it?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Discs. Well, not CDs. We're talking about CDs.
For Visual Studio 97,
it was never on like a floppy.
It was CDs. I remember when Windows 95 came out that there was a floppy disk option that was like 11 floppies or something silly like that. They were those little floppies that looked straight. If you don't remember floppies, like if you're not old enough to remember.
If you don't remember floppies, congratulations.
Then yes, you know, I know that that's the save button, and you're wondering what the heck that is.
Why is it a
right?
Yeah,
but that hard floppy, which honestly looked like it came right out of the classic Star Trek with Leonard Nimoy, that he was picking those things up and putting them in a slot, right? That's sometimes you wonder what technology had to be inspired from.
I just remember cutting it out or
cutting
something
the
like
notch
so you could flip it over or something like that. Right?
So you could ride on the reverse
I don't understand how that was ever even a thing. Like, why wasn't it? I don't know.
It's
bizarre.
But today we have, you know, I think that a lot, and this is what I'm curious to hear from you, is I think .NET developers still, I hear a lot of them say to me or say out loud, Visual Studio is the gold standard when you want to work. You're on Windows, you're going to be writing .NET. It's like a reflex action. I'm reaching for Visual Studio.
Yeah.
And we've come a long way in Visual Studio, where for a long time you had to either pay for it, or hopefully maybe you got it from work or used it at work. Today we have Visual Studio Community.
Sure.
Anyone can use it, and it has all this. It's the same bits as professional. So there's nothing holding you back from getting started as long as you're on Windows with
as long as you're on Windows, right? That was always part of the thing. But, you know, if you're doing .NET development,
doesn't have to be.
Probably on Windows, you know, like were.
Sure.
You know, if you were.
At the time, absolutely.
At the time, yeah. Visual Studio is still, I think, the go-to for most people. The tooling has gotten unbelievable. It's interesting because there's a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for, like a peak, a negative peak in terms of performance to some ways, where it was getting almost like it was having trouble.
Sure.
Right, when you had these really large solutions.
Yeah.
Then Roslyn came out. Then they sort of they were always working on new enhancements to make it better and better and better. And the ecosystem of extensions for it is huge and all that. But then at some point, here comes VS Code.
Right. Well, before VS Code,
Okay.
I think you had, what was happening was that, so those of us who coded in Windows, for Windows, you were going to be on Windows. And that was it. That didn't mean this other ecosystem didn't exist. Plenty of people hacking away on Linux.
Right.
Plenty. And you know what? I'm going to be fair. Did we talk to those people very much?
No.
And did they talk to us very much?
No.
We could still be friends, but we didn't have anything in common.
We didn't, quote, love them.
But
like we love them now,
but
right?
even if you were did you have anything in common? Whatever you're doing over there,
it was a different.
I can't help you anyway.
No.
So but
and nobody I worked with was it was split.
Right. And so you had these new IDEs that were super popular, especially as Node was becoming ubiquitous, like Atom and Sublime.
Yes.
Everybody was like, go get Sublime, go get Atom, and then Microsoft jumped in with Visual Studio
because at the
Code.
time they were doing a lot of JavaScript development.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so they're like, well, you don't need Visual Studio just
No.
to do HTML and JavaScript.
Right.
And they were right to a point.
Absolutely. And Atom was extendable with extensions. It was kind of like you could bring the IDE to Atom.
Right.
And you could do it with Sublime. You could do it with a lot of other editors. In fact, when .NET Core, which didn't have that name, was first announced, one of the big community initiatives was OmniSharp, which wasn't just focused on the server IntelliSense side.
Right.
It was also saying run in anything, run in Emacs, run in, and there was a whole list of editors that it supported. But something happened. And something happened which I don't know that anyone expected to happen. And it was the editor that according to the most recent, and you take whatever you want out of this, the most recent Stack Overflow developer survey has a majority at 50.7% Visual Studio Code. A bare majority, but everything else is, it's 20 points behind it.
Yeah, so it has an easy majority, but it's over the 50% mark, which I think is interesting.
And I see it demoed all the time by folks running on their Linux boxes or Mac boxes, doing absolutely nothing to do with anything related to Microsoft technologies at all.
Yeah, I think most of those people, are not
Python.
Yeah.
Go.
So it's like, so how did that happen, right? I think at one point I remember hearing people say, well, VS Code is interesting, but I use Sublime. The amount of plugins I have, and you're never going to get there. Like, it's hard. We've seen this with, dare I say, Windows Phone and with all these other things. It's hard going from not number one to, or being new, to jumping ahead, but they did. And do you recall what?
I can't say for sure what helped the other ecosystems, like everything from Ruby to Java. I think it was just that not only was it so extensible, not to say that Atom and Sublime and all the other ones weren't extensible,
right?
But it might have been that Microsoft was so forthcoming with the docs on exactly how to do it, like very clear from day one. And then having some little enhancements, like there is a built-in language and debugging protocol.
Right. So
basically what they're kind of telling you is put in a little bit of elbow grease, and you can turn this into the IDE of your dreams for whatever your platform is.
Yeah.
And CSharp and OmniSharp were the demo.
Right.
Because it worked really, people, if you were being, I think, fair-minded about it, and you said, I don't care what's going on in .NET at all, but look at what they're doing with that little editor. I bet you I could make that happen for myself in Python.
Yeah.
And so, it's amazing that it is kind of the gold standard again. But among .NET developers who maybe are used to, they've lived in Visual Studio for 20 years now. Yeah. Do you know anybody who's maybe never really tried Visual Studio Code for .NET development? Like, do you know anybody
that's never used it for .NET development? So I haven't really done that.
Yeah, right.
So and that's where you're leading to. Now I use VS Code, you know, so at work sometimes we'll do an Angular project.
Okay.
And we'll do the Angular stuff in VS Code. It's a really good experience. But I was always doing the .NET side.
Okay.
In Visual Studio.
Jump into Visual Studio.
And part of that was because, you know, .NET Framework, these are full framework apps and things like that. And I'm not sure what the support story is. I don't think you can do, I guess you could probably do full framework stuff, but it's probably harder or something like that, you know.
I think, so.
I mean, compile is compile. You can always.
With .NET Core, earlier days of .NET Core 1.0, I used to spend more time actually showing off some framework stuff, I think.
Right.
But I have to admit,
I would think you could do it. But the thing is, it just didn't seem necessary for me. I'm like, well, I got Visual Studio. It's great.
Yep.
But when you start to see numbers like 50.7%. You got to think like, what am I like? This sounds like a good experience. It's going to be lightweight. It's fast. It's clean. So I'm thinking like, I want to learn how to start from scratch. Like, you know, I want to create an application in VS Code, and I've not done that before. And I keep hearing about features, you know, like IntelliSense is there, and there's debugging and stuff like that. And I think I've seen some demos on it too. I mean, I'm not completely blind to it. Like I've seen the demos, you know, but I've never actually done it.
All right. Well,
So,
your machine is probably the best place to start.
Let's do it.
So we're gonna head over to Andy's desktop here.
So I see Andy's desktop. Oh, now we're good. Okay.
Yeah, right. So
this is the fun part of live streaming, right? Is that we plan it, we practice it, and then you go live, and it's like
we didn't practice this.
We didn't, but we've practiced. Like, okay, I can see your desktop.
That
and
whole
it's like,
part, yeah.
Let's switch to it.
Well, this is where
what happened now?
This is where Rich has the hard part. I mean, this
poor
is
Rich.
not easy.
But it's like, do it.
Yeah, Rich. Right. Come on, Rich.
Make it
Where's my
happen.
screen?
There you go. How about that?
Come on. Hey, all right. Look at that. We're in there.
So here we are on Andy's desktop.
So VS Code. Or do you want me to start out in
No, go ahead and open.
Explorer?
I can go ahead and open VS Code. I will tell you that VS Code, Visual Studio Code, is what I reach for if I just want to open a text file. I right click and hit that.
Well, I don't do it like I still use Notepad.
Okay.
But for certain things, like if I'm just doing like throwing together a little HTML or a little JavaScript, like I definitely go right to this.
Or if I want to look at the files in a folder, but not from the Explorer point of view, not from the what are they? It's okay. A lot of these are text files. Can I just kind of examine them real quick?
Well, that's a good idea.
VS Code.
Yeah.
Or if here's another use case for it, and a lot of other editors have this too. Is Notepad's hot reloading isn't really there, but VS Code does hot reloading. So bring up a log.
It's really good for hot reloading. Yeah. Well, that's why I use Notepad plus by the way.
Oh, and Notepad plus. There's another one. There's another one integrated.
Yeah.
You can integrate language support and make it into your IDE.
Right.
So you do need.
Oh, what's going on there? We're getting hosted.
Yeah, we got a host from RemAG who is a Mixer partner, by the way, and you know, he's really been an inspiration for us to use the best features in the best part of the Mixer community. So hi Rem, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, that's cool.
He's got a really cool community of gamers that he calls the average gamers, because he says instead of trying to be like other communities where you think you're the best,
the hot shots,
and the hot shots. That's exactly that, and maybe even the hot heads a little bit.
Right,
is you're playing games for the fun of it and for the camaraderie.
It's a little bit more for I don't know if I'm using the right term, but regular people.
Yeah,
so
it's
seems
actually,
accessible to me.
It's not an insult in his stream to be average. It's what you strive for.
Well, I wonder, would you say most people are exceptional or most people are average?
Well, for me, it's
most
below
people
average
are average, right?
That's in a lot of games,
right?
But,
most people are average. That's
so thanks for joining us tonight. And anybody joining us tonight, no matter which platform you're on, if you have any questions for us, put them in the chat, and we will definitely try to answer them as we get started with Visual Studio Code. So,
all right, so
just out of the box, you get Visual Studio Code, you install it, you still need an extension. So, so the extensions window, Andy's opening up right now. There are literally hundreds, maybe thousands of extensions for Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, why do I?
And you're no extension.
I had something's going on here because I had one.
You did. Well, you need the CSharp extension, so you might as well go get it.
Does that change by the location you're at? Like, are they installed locally versus globally?
That's a newer thing.
That's a newer thing.
There is a way to assign extensions to a workspace now, which I kind of like, because what I could do is instead of having the CSharp and the Python and the XML and the documentation, all those extensions running all the time, is I can do things like say, hey, when I'm working on docs, disable the C# extension.
Right.
So I'm not sure, because we did before the show, we did see that you had the C# extension installed.
How is it possible that that's not here? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Now, maybe
if you just type C# now, we should be able to install it real quick.
C#. Well, is it? Yeah, C#.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So click on the cog there, because it's grayed out as if it is already installed, and then do enable.
Enable. Why
just enable it. So it was disabled for some reason that I can't.
Yeah, who knows why, right? But I wonder if I have other things disabled. Isn't there a way to show disabled? Let's see if I have other things that are. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so that was the only thing. But now, if I do this, we'll see that I have C#.
Yep. So you've enabled the C# extension, and what's happening, you can see down in the output window.
Yeah.
Kind of behind your back, the packages to make a project called OmniSharp Go updated. And that might be because maybe you haven't used the C# extension in a while. So the C# extension is powered by a community project called OmniSharp, whose purpose, part of their purpose, and this is a very nutshell look at it, is to enable that rich IDE-like feel that you like from Visual Studio, but in this lightweight editor.
But Microsoft doesn't own it. You're saying it's
a community project. Yep.
That's
amazing, is what it really is. That's the word. That's the word.
I guess I would only assume Microsoft probably would have done it at some point. I think but it's that community input that makes these kind of tools so popular and powerful and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't matter, honestly. Like, I could be selfish and say I don't care who wrote it, as long as I know it's anytime you install plugins, you should always be sort of evaluating to make sure they're legit, whatever it is.
Right.
However, I look at it and you see, I don't know, I could probably clicked it and saw like the statistics. Here we go. So it's got 18 million downloads. See, now it does say Microsoft on here.
Oh, the C#. So the C# extension, I think, is distributed by Microsoft.
But powered.
But powered, there it is, powered by OmniSharp.
Right.
So I guess we're splitting some hairs there.
Yeah, sure.
But the OmniSharp's a community project.
Okay. So that's going to give me something, having that thing. Now,
this isn't Visual Studio Code, what I'm saying next. You need the .NET Core SDK.
Yeah.
And even Windows developers on Visual Studio should be familiar with going to the home of .NET at dot.net and getting the latest SDKs or previews.
Right.
Now, as you install Visual Studio updates, you're getting these SDKs, whether you realize it or not. And what you may not know is the number of them are beginning to layer on your machine, one on top of the other. You are already kind of showing there that you have a terminal open to Windows PowerShell, and if you hit Control Plus, we'll make the whole window just a little bigger. Just so folks, it should be Control and then the plus, not from the keypad if you've got one, the one that's over by like the 9 and the 0.
Well, it's the X, this plus right here, but it's on a shift, right? So I did Control.
You don't have to shift it, no.
Well, it's equals then. Control.
Well, it should be.
Just my thing is just doing this.
Really?
See, look, my whole window's zooming in each time I do that.
Yeah, no, it does zoom in. It does zoom in. Don't zoom in too much. But part of the reason is because I think it was really small.
Yeah, sure.
At your default. So there's an integrated terminal. You have PowerShell up now. If you like PowerShell, you can keep it, or you can click on that little sign there and switch over to a command prompt or add a command prompt.
Yeah, so what's interesting is I thought you could toggle them or something.
You can't. If you select a default shell.
Yeah, but when I do plus, it always gives me whatever the default is, right? So now I can say we want command prompt.
If you want command prompt, you might be more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, so then I have to still do a new one now and get that in command. So now I have 2 of these windows.
Or you could go out to the command prompt, but maybe we'll stay in here.
To stay in here. I will say that's one thing I do in here also is when I do command line git stuff, I find myself doing it in VS Code.
Okay.
And I know how much you love command line git stuff because I'm a tools guy. But go ahead. All right. So now what?
Okay. So let's do let's say .NET and just hit enter. So when you have the .NET Core SDK, you get a command line tool called .NET, .NET, and it actually does a ton of stuff. It creates new projects, it can update new projects, it can run code, it can compile code. And you can get some help.
Stuff, right?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that it does. It'll create a Visual Studio solution. It'll add projects to it.
Yeah.
Really, anything that the .NET Core, any .NET Core IDE has to do can be done by command line.
Okay.
And part of the reason for that is that unlike the old days where as a .NET developer, oh, sure, you could use Notepad if you wanted to write .NET. A lot of the tooling was written separately. And if you didn't use Visual Studio, you might as well just hang it up and give up.
Right.
Where what's happening now is that the baseline for all work is it works with the .NET command line app.
Yeah.
And then, we use that to do the Visual Studio support. You can do things in Visual Studio Code. That doesn't necessarily mean they're the same, though.
Right.
Because I've been asked that question.
They're not the same.
Does Visual Studio just run
just run
new? So a few years ago, that question was asked as if the team was going to get there. And at the time, Damien Edwards had said, I don't know if we're going to get there. And Damien Edwards is the program manager for ASP.NET, the whole, and .NET in general. I don't know for sure if there's some use of command line tools, but part of my reasoning for saying that it isn't quite integrated is that if you build a new project in Visual Studio, that's clearly using the Visual Studio project templates because they're, first of all, they're different. And second of all, you can see them. You can see it's using the Visual Studio support. You can go find those templates.
It has templates as opposed to the command, right?
Instead of the .NET Core.
But they don't really need to because they have something that's sort of like enhanced on top of it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So let's go back to your command line here, and on your machine, and what we'll do is we'll say on your machine we'll do dot net space, and one of those commands there was --, so 2 dashes, the word list, then dash SDKs.
Right. Find out what I got here.
Yeah, and so you may not have actively gone to install these things.
Yeah, so they could have come with Visual Studio.
Visual Studio
come a lot of
updates.
places. Yeah, right.
So you have a whole bunch of different .NET cores on your machine.
And you can see I've got the preview stuff like that.
Right. So I guess what we're really getting at is, well, how do I create a project? And the simplest way to just get started is to just say .NET new.
Right now, I want to change my path, I think, right? Because this is going to be...
Right. I think you're going to want to change it. Change it to the folder that you actually want to do some work in here.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's...
So we even go create a folder.
Yeah, I put things in here, even though it's not a repo. I swear I put all the stuff. So we'll say, what is it, Maker?
Yep.
I'm going to call it...
This is the pop quiz. Does Andy remember his DOS code?
I knew that Maker. That was pretty good, right? Yeah, I don't know a lot. I know a couple of things. We're just going to call it Demo 1. Isn't that exciting? Right?
Yeah, Demo 1's fine.
And that's it. I'll make that directory, and I'm going to CD...
The only thing I was wondering is Maker going to work, or is it going to be MD? But Maker works fine.
I know MD works.
Yeah.
What's that?
I know MD works.
Oh, MD works too?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
No,
you did great.
That's great for when you go to Bash Shell. You get your Maker.
Right.
Okay, so now I'm going to do
So the command is .NET new.
Not .NET dash new?
No, it's just .NET new. So the second parameter to all of these is some action to do.
Yeah, right.
And if you do -- help here, what you will get are all the different templates available to you.
So even nested in on the command, I can do ask for help and stuff like that. Now we've made this kind of big, so...
Well, actually, it's thinking. It's
working
working
on
on
doing
it.
Yeah.
There it is. Here are the templates. This is probably the first time you've run .NET New, so it grabbed all the templates. And there's a bunch of them. And
so I'd like to demonstrate some stuff, we probably should do like a little console app or something like that, right?
And so up near the top, the way you read this list is what's the type of application on the left if you want console, then a little bit over on the right, the third column short name, that's what you're looking for. So if you want a new WPF project, you do WPF. Do you want to, there's a ton of stuff. You want an N unit project to do your unit testing? Right.
Now, I haven't done a lot. I've actually done, I used a little bit of this to generate an X unit project, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even though, well, it's a long story on that, but all right. So I think what we want, I'm just looking for good old, did I skip?
So console was the first one.
Was it? Oh, I didn't.
But that's okay.
I skipped right past it.
So you were
console,
right.
Yeah, look at that.
So you were right. Just so back at when you can get back to a command line, and again, you could do this in command prompt if you aren't using the integrated terminal. Just .NET new console.
And I got
It's going to create, because you're in a folder called Demo 1. It's going to create a project right here in that folder.
Right.
And let's see what it does.
But I got to name it, don't I?
No, you're done. That's it. Watch.
Okay.
But you could name it if you wanted.
Is this a project or a solution? This is a project, right?
It's going to create a project, not a solution, because you're not in Visual Studio.
Yeah.
You could create a solution.
So
I feel like
so
we
in
could
.NET
discuss that another
Core,
time.
I don't need a solution.
No, not.
And that's
solutions are Visual Studio constructs, not .NET Core constructs. They're not even really .NET Framework constructs.
Interesting.
It's
It's a
just
tooling thing.
yeah, it's just-
tooling likes to keep those things together. Okay, great.
Okay, so now, if you you could do dir here. That's fine.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that. Now see that
Yeah,
you were
look at
asking
that.
earlier about naming the project. It took your directory name
Okay.
and it said, "Oh, demo one. Well, I guess this is demo1.cs project."
Right.
Can you add more parameters?
Sure. Right. I can
Yes,
do that, right.
because thinking about how your project will grow, you will probably have a second project later. And if there are other parameters for you to say demo1.models.lib
Yeah.
for your
right.
other code, your business
Yeah,
code
got
or
it,
whatever.
right.
But for the simple demo,
All right.
it took it. Now let's open it up in Visual Studio Code. We don't have a solution file, but Visual Studio Code, if you would like, will treat any folder as just a place to work.
Yeah. All right. I know that.
So
Yep.
if you say if you're on your command line, you could theoretically right now just say
do like
just say code dot
or something.
Yeah.
Right.
You could also do it in the IDE, but that in the editor
Yeah.
IDE.
But now I'm going to end up having two codes, and I'll just close
I'm not
one.
sure.
I
it
think.
might
Yeah.
open this
I
one.
think that's what it does, if I'm not mistaken. So then I just use.
Oh, it
I've
did.
done this
It did.
before
You're
for
right.
other circumstances
I
because
wasn't 100% sure what I was
I've
going to do.
dabbled in this, but I've never really created this new one. But anyway.
So what it's done is the open editor's pane is always showing you whatever file you got open from whatever source. But see how it's taken that folder, and if this feels like a solution, but
Yeah,
it's not,
right.
and it feels like a workspace, but that's not the same concept. Visual Studio Code does have a concept of workspaces where you can pull files from different locations and kind of say like, this is a place I kind of need to work.
Okay.
But here you're just working in a folder. Now,
I got a little pop up here.
yeah, in fact,
Toast.
a couple things have already happened.
Yeah. I noticed the
It
bin.
automatically ran.
Yeah, because the bin folder like popped
Yeah.
up while you were talking. So it compiled it.
Well, I think
Or
it ran .NET Restore. I don't
Okay.
know if it actually compiled it. You did
guess
get a
we can
little
look in here and see
message
if it-
that said, yeah, I think what it did is it did a .NET
Yeah, you're right.
Restore.
It didn't build it, or we would see something under here.
No, it didn't build it.
Yeah. So it did it.
So in the lower right, you have a little bell because I think it hid the message. So we can bring that message back.
Up. Yep.
Required assets to build and debug are missing. Now, without Visual Studio Code,
Right.
if you were just at command line, you would say .NET Restore,
Yeah.
and that would do the whole NuGet Restore and all those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
right.
you can just click yes here.
Right. I can click yes.
Yeah.
Right. And that's going to basically do NuGet.
The CSharp
Yeah.
extension is basically saying, you can't build this thing right now.
Right.
So we got a question
Yeah, we
for
got a
Rem
question.
that says, does VS Code let you compile your work similar to NetBeans and Eclipse? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
We're going to see in a second that VS Code, while it doesn't have its own compiler or debugger or anything, it lets you declaratively, there's a special file that we're going to see. In fact, those files were just created for you by the C# extension, and they're in the .VS Code folder. You got launch.json and
Okay.
tasks.json.
Uh-huh.
Now, those two files are not specific to C#. They tell Visual Studio Code when Andy hits the play button in the debug view, what do I do?
Yeah. So they're in a folder called .VS Code, which tells me that outside of VS Code, they may not have any kind of meaning.
They're not.
Right. That's
yeah.
just it's things to help.
Right.
The tooling.
And that's
right?
become a semi sort of editor standard, kind of, where the Visual Studio team has adopted it, and they'll put all of their special IDE specific files in .vs.
Right.
And generally speaking, developers tend not to check those in.
Right.
There's minor debate about that, but I think, boy, I'm going to put myself out on a limb. I think the majority of developers will say, no, you don't check that in. That's your environment setup.
Yeah.
But so like Rem says, so you can't debug and step through the code.
No, that's
let's
the whole
go ahead
point.
and do
I want to
this.
see
Yeah.
that. That's what I'm hoping
The
to have.
C#
Rem.
extension
Right.
enables that.
Yeah,
Because if you were to,
And this is the cool thing, by the way. So, like you just said, that the extension enables that.
Yeah.
VS Code doesn't do that, but VS Code is like a playground.
Yep.
That says build your own tools
Right.
and insert here, right?
The Python extension written by that community will enable that experience for you in Python. I don't know, the different communities are a little bit richer, some are poorer.
Sure.
What's kind of interesting here, that out of the box, you can start doing node work in Visual Studio Code, no extension required, and you can step through and set breakpoints and everything in Node. Node is the no extension required environment for Visual Studio Code. You could almost call it like the native environment. That's from a Microsoft product, right?
Yeah, right.
So you've opened up.
I'm going to play.
You've opened up
Control-Tick,
program.cs.
That's the thing I need. Yeah.
For the terminal.
Yeah. Well, do I need the terminal?
You don't.
First thing I like to try to do is compile.
Okay.
Like I know that we have this bin, but we haven't compiled yet.
So we're crossing a few streams here.
Yeah.
On command line, you could say, and let's not do that.
Okay.
You could say things like .NET build.
Yeah, I thought that's what you were going to ask me to do.
You could say .NET run, which will automatically restore and build and run.
Right.
But let's not.
No, let's not.
Let's set a breakpoint. Just like, how would you set a breakpoint in Visual Studio?
Well, I'm assuming I'm going to click here.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. So
the little red dot.
Right. And again, that's not necessarily VS Code doing that.
The C# extension. Now, to be fair, the C# extension is using what's built into the product to say, let me put a little red dot there.
Well, yeah, right.
Okay.
Right,
so they didn't have to do all the graphical work and all the.
Right.
There's sometimes.
But it's neat that that's all separated out. But okay, so I've got this. So
on the left side of your screen,
there is
you are in what's the Files tab right now.
Yeah.
And the only reason we know that is because those two file-looking things are just a little bit brighter than the rest of them.
Yeah, it's not super bright. I'd like to see it be a blue or something like that.
I don't know that the contrast is enough there.
Yeah.
So the next one is the search box.
I've gotten used to knowing what it looks like. But
then the Git one is the third one. That's for Git.
Yep.
The fourth one, look at what that is. That's supposed to be like a picture of a bug.
Look at the icon.
With an X on
really
it.
Bad, but yeah, it says debug.
I guess that's like no bugs.
Control-Shift-D, yeah.
So go ahead and click that.
So, but this is gonna debug.
It's gonna switch the tab. Watch. Okay, our view changed.
Oh,
we're in a debugging view now.
Variables,
and
watch,
some of this might look familiar to you.
This is starting to get as you know, it's getting exciting from my perspective.
And in the upper left corner, do you see the debug?
Yeah, I got the
play
run
button. The play button looks familiar.
Yeah, sure.
And those tasks.
Now I made this big, so some of the stuff's not.
Sure.
We did that zoom, right?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious to take a look at
in the drop-down box, you have tasks. Those are coming from tasks.json and launch.json, which are basically telling Visual Studio.
Can we take a look?
You can take a quick
let's go back into. So that's coming from launch.
I don't want to get too lost in these weeds.
But here it is: name .NET Core launch.
These are your
console.
launch configurations.
So we can make our own.
You can make your own.
Do all kinds of stuff.
The C# extension added two that you probably want to get started on.
Yeah,
one is just to launch the thing, and the second one to attach. You could have the process running externally and then attach to it.
Attach. Okay.
Or you could launch, and it's going to launch in the debugger, the integrated debugging.
Okay. So back to my guy here.
Yep.
I'm in launch. So you want me to go for that?
You could literally just run it, yeah.
This is going to be big.
Yeah.
Do we have drum rolls on this thing? Now down here it says using a preview version of .NET Core. So it's okay, blah, blah, blah.
Right. So what's happening now is, if you're not familiar with .NET Core, he's running a console app. That app was compiled.
Oh my God! Hold it! Stop talking.
It ran.
Wait, I just love this.
Not only did it run, your main function was executed.
It sure was.
And you only got one statement in there.
Yeah.
And you are breakpointed on it right now.
Right.
So you could go take a look at the local variables that happen to be in play right now. The arguments that were passed to this. There's nothing in there. But I
can add a watch.
You can add a watch. You can look at the call stack. Yeah. Which isn't much.
No, but it tells me. So, we've got enough experience to know that this is
real.
This is what this gives me. You know what I mean?
You're already
and I can see the
saying,
breakpoints.
Wow, this feels a lot like.
Yeah. So where's the now? Maybe it's because I haven't run it yet, and this just has write line. But where's my output? Like where's the?
Okay, so
usually fires up like a
So
window.
in your bottom pane, you have problems output terminal.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead over to so the debug console is just throwing out.
I'm just curious to see what that was. Yeah, okay.
Well, that's output is tasks. So go back to actually go change the drop down for tasks.
The drop down.
When you were in output, there were several
it.
different tasks. There's task, build, extension.
What's C#? Interesting. Output for C#. Is that gonna I'm wondering where is this gonna go?
So go back to terminal.
Terminal. Oh, so the terminal is
I misunderstood what you're saying. Because if we were to go out to terminal, then and you were to do a .NET run, you would have seen this output that I know we can't see it all right now,
Right.
but that's what .NET run, your little DLL, your simple console app would have said. It would have said you're using a preview version of .NET
Yeah,
Core.
yeah, right. So now if I want to move to the next line, is it like F10?
So up at the top, just because, just so we can make sure we have the.
Oh my God, that's so small.
Oh,
that
that's
says,
small. That's
step over is 10.
I wonder why you're getting
Scaling?
really small breakpoints.
Well, yeah, I think it's just this. It's not the breakpoints. It's the scaling of my hovers, right?
Yeah, but you're used to hitting F10 to go to the next line, right? So go ahead and hit F10.
F10. Am I on function? Yeah. F10. So there it is. But where's my? I guess I'm saying, where's my hello world?
So that's the build task. Let's
change
that drop down. We got to go to command. The command window, right? Oh,
no,
gosh,
that's not
you're
right.
I thought we should have.
Do I have to finish running it? Is it
no?
You shouldn't have to, right? I hit that line. So where?
Here's the part we didn't practice. Right?
Yeah, we didn't practice any of this. Output.
Debug console. It shouldn't be debug console. That doesn't make sense to me.
Wait, there's more. Hold it. Log. .NET. Now, would it? I'm wondering if since I'm past that line, if it wouldn't show it again anyway.
No, I don't think that's.
But
right.
I was expecting it to open up like a normal console app opens up the console, right? This is saying, well, we've already got a console in here, is what you're thinking, right? Is there a view?
You don't have. No, you don't. I was going to say you don't have a window that opened.
What does that do?
Well, it took away.
Oh, it took it away because I had it. Yeah, let's just. I guess I can go to view. Puts it back in there. Yeah, that's interesting.
What we want is the console. So go to debug console there.
There it is.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So it's in line with other stuff.
In order, I think, to make a little bit more sense of it.
Yeah.
Let's stop this. You've got the stop button at the top.
Yeah.
Let's go out to the command line.
To a regular command line.
Let's do this. Instead of you going this way, go back to your file tab, the upper left corner. And now we'll all get to see a nice little trick here. Just right click like on program.cs. Should be good enough. And say reveal in Explorer or open in, reveal in Explorer. Now, watch this one. You're still not at a command line, right?
Yeah, I think you showed me this once. I think
somebody showed me this.
Oh, maybe I showed you. Someone showed. I thought we.
And I said, of all the years, I never knew.
Yeah,
that I
up
could do
here,
this
right? I think I showed this
to you. Click there
and
type CMD.
Yeah, I think I showed it to you.
And it'll open the command prompt right there.
This is like, where's that been all my life?
I know.
Right?
Well, I wonder how many versions, right? Just how many versions?
So I think what you're going to tell me to do is go into like
now
the
do
bin,
.NET Run from here.
Oh, .NET Run right from here?
Yeah.
I don't need to be in the.
No, because .NET Run will automatically look for a CS proj file.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's going to find it. It's going to find demo1.cs.
Oh, it's
proj.
.NET Run. I'm not saying execute the exe.
Yeah.
Right. Which I guess we could do as well.
So
console apps in exe, right?
That's new to .NET Core 3, if I remember correctly. I could that is changing.
So there it is, right in line. Hello, sorry.
It used to be that you ran everything through .NET Run, but I think that we're moving past that, partially because we need that for WinForms and WPF support. But and I think also to kind of grow up and be a real. I mean, let's not. To be fair about the history of .NET Core, it was ASP.NET Core.
Yeah.
Yes, there was this console thing, but you were going to ship ASP.NET Core. With .NET Core 3 coming out in a couple weeks, a lot of new workloads that really are meaningful.
It's just .NET
WPF, WinForms, services, gRPC related services for backends.
So, yeah, I'm sorry.
So
I get it.
You got your hello world from the command line, but I understand what you're thinking. Back over in Visual Studio Code, I got all this other cruft.
Yeah,
I think if we go look at the launch.json, you will see that it's run with a command line that basically says, show me stuff.
Oh. So maybe we could.
I think that's correct.
I get what you're saying. That kind of makes sense. Console. First of all, console says internal console. That sort of tells me I could tell it not to use the internal console if I wanted to. I mean, I'm just guessing.
You could create a new configuration that was maybe more terse.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Now I don't know where it is that I'm getting all that other, who knows what's in this what's in this thing. So what I wanted to get out of this, by the way, we're almost done. Like I want to know how to create something new. I knew it was .NET new or something like that, but you got to get used to this stuff. But the experience is pretty good. It's not so the new part, .NET new, that's command line. Because when I think about this stuff, we talked about this, the Visual Studio crowd. A lot of developers were just used to right-clicking, or not even right-clicking. You go to the menu and you say, I want to create a new project. Add Solution Explorer, add new project to my solution. And so there's a bit of, I think, a hurdle for a lot of people to sort of get used to the fact that I'm going to say .NET new, right? Now, it's certainly not complicated to say .NET new. It's certainly easy. I wonder now, there aren't many ways to do that. Or I wonder if that would be something someone could add, like,
so
why not?
In
right?
Visual Studio Code, on different platforms, this command is different, but you're on Windows, so do Control-Shift-P.
Control,
which I just memorized after a while.
Oh yeah, that's this.
And that brings
here.
up the command palette.
Right.
Now, if you type .NET, you're going to get, or I'm sorry, in this case, actually, maybe let's do C# because it's a C# extension. You should be getting, no, I was wrong about that. Maybe it really is .NET, but not .NET. And the reason I say that is see the commands that are coming up here that already say .NET?
.NET, yeah.
I'm not sure. I really don't know if we would find commands in here that say create a new project or anything like that.
Right.
And I admit the reason I don't know is because
you don't do that.
I kind of got to learn the .NET CLI command line for this.
But the point is, we're not going to come under file as an example and say,
There's not going to be a file new project.
File new project, right?
No, you would do that out at the command line.
Yeah,
or you could.
And they have a lot of templates for different things.
Look, I certainly believe that there are probably a lot of developers out there that open up Visual Studio and create the project structure that they want, and then they close it and they go to Visual Studio Code.
Now, I've seen the demos where you can create, and maybe this is a framework thing. I've seen people create solutions and then say .NET. Like it's like add or something like that. You add projects, but you don't need a solution. You don't need a solution anymore.
You don't need it now. If you want
but if I want to open this,
multiple projects and have them live in a solution type experience, you would, even in Visual Studio Code, you would do that. Because my question to you would be, how would you open the second project?
Yeah,
in this paradigm of folder-based work, you don't have a way. Open a solution file. Visual Studio Code now recognizes that.
Oh, really?
Relatively new feature, but not. It's not an ancient feature, but it's not like last week.
What if I went to the solution folder, not the solution, but the solution folder? In other words, we know we have this thing called. Well, let's go back to what you were saying before. I'm going to go. Actually, I have it right here, I think. So if we look at what we have here, demo 1, and we have these projects, right? But if the structure was different, if we pretended demo 1 was a solution, and then under it we had folders for multiple projects, then I could open this demo 1 project in here, and I would see the different projects underneath them.
You would see all the files.
All the files, right.
But I kind of found that if you want that multi-project experience, you're better off, even in Visual Studio Code, creating a solution file, putting the projects under it. So because then what happens is you get that separated project experience that you get today in Visual Studio, where one project's here, another project's here, and all the hierarchy set up for you. So you kind of head back towards solutions.
Well, but here's the thing, right? If we want to enable, and this is a question, right? Everyone does things differently, but let's say I want to use Visual Studio Code here, and my coworker wants to use Visual Studio. Then we would need that scenario anyway.
I think the solution file is the way to go, because then they can use it. And you can use it, and it'll be seamless.
It's not in the way. Now I want to change topic here a little bit. I can't help but notice, and maybe this was here all along, but there's this giant add configuration button there. Now, did that show up when did that?
When you open launch.json.
I don't remember. I didn't notice it at first.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice it. So I want to click this.
Yeah.
Because I want to see what happens
Because
here.
before we had that button in the C# extension, you had to learn that launch.json format, which is still not a horrible idea.
Yeah.
Except that, when you just want to get something done and you don't feel like cruising to the documentation.
Right.
So let's click on add configuration.
But before we do, sorry.
Okay.
Before we do, let's take a minute and think about this. This button is floating here. Like, this is a rich plugin environment that someone's able to do this, and I don't have to, I'm not locked down to my terminal, right? And I'm not locked into the menu to put things, right? They're floating a button in here. How they did that is not really the point, but that's cool.
That's how extensible the IDE, the editor is. I keep calling it an
And
IDE.
now, when I clicked it, it's giving me, it looks like it's giving me some presets.
What it's picking up is, it's picking up what the different extensions are reporting to it. I could make this extension for you. I could make this task, task.json is different. I could make this launch configuration for you. You know, do you want me to create a configuration to launch a .NET Core web app, which you don't have one to point to, but you could.
Right. But I could do .NET launch a .NET Core console app. Now that's what we have already. So that's in attach to process.
Attach to remote is interesting.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I mean, I feel like clicking one of these. Now, does it know where to put it? Let's see what it does. Did it put it?
I think it's gonna.
I'm assuming it's
first
at the
of all,
bottom,
put it right there. See that type node?
Yeah.
So it brought in the JSON, and now you got to learn how to fill it out. But you need to say, okay,
oh, it's not ready.
What am I gonna name it?
Oh, but so they're prompting me. Like, again, this is to me a really interesting medium. They didn't pop up a window with a bunch of text boxes in it, right?
Sure.
But they're helping me go through this on a step-by-step basis and type in, whatever I want to call it, attached to remote.
Where
please,
Visual Studio developer might have expected a wizard-like experience with dialogue after dialogue.
Right.
We're embracing the fact that this is a text editor.
Yeah.
I know it's in a graphical environment, but it could be something this is just a file.
It's just a file. And in some ways, this makes it ultimately more extensible, because if they want to change this, it's probably simpler than, well, I'm popping up a window and I have to think about this resolution on your screen and all kinds of stuff. Like, this is just like, boom, you're in here.
Rethink the tooling.
And so there's probably like built-in stuff to say, I want to highlight a certain area or something like that. Anyway, and it's JSON, so it's probably built in for JSON editing. So the address, so I can put in whatever this is, right? I'm going to put in like, 111.111. Whatever this is, right? This is cool. I mean, I'm going to delete this, but this is cool that I can put in these things.
Yeah, you
right?
can add a new configuration. The one that might have been interesting is go connect to a .NET Core app running remotely on another machine or something like that.
Yeah. All right, so this is interesting because we're seeing how some experiences are going to be for me as a developer here in Visual Studio Code, and I find it pretty exciting. Now, part of me is still torn here. I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. This is easy. But so is Visual Studio, right? So, I'm a little on the why. Still a little like, well, I have this thing that works great for me. But I think what I want to start doing as I do more .NET Core in particular is sort of force myself to this IDE, because I have a feeling I'm going to discover more things along the way that I'm going to really start to embrace and find faster. Yeah, because this is what I hear from people. Oh, it's so fast. It's so lightweight. You don't get a lot of overhead. I've seen plugins, I've seen demos where people are using plugins that felt like, or extensions, I should say, I guess, that felt like things like Visual Studio, like things that allow you to look at SQL Server and stuff like that. So it's like, I just think this is going to take over, and this is going to be the Visual Studio of the future, And that's just me hypothesizing, but I just think that, and that's why I want to get used to it.
A few years ago on this little podcast called the Static Void Podcast, we had a talk about what is an IDE anyway, and Visual Studio Code was fairly new. And part of the argument, in fact, our good friend Jess Chadwick made the argument that he's like, this is what an IDE is. He said, there's nothing stopping it. There's no reason that everything you can't do in Visual Studio wouldn't be in here. Fancy profilers and debugging and graphs showing you how much memory you're consuming. Like, why can't you do it? And I think the only argument back was because it takes time to implement all that, and we already have it in Visual Studio right now.
Right.
And obviously those teams are going to keep iterating, and you've got great things like live unit testing and stuff like that.
Live unit testing, so throwing on a spot here, not available?
I can't think of a live unit testing. See, I will admittedly just put my foot in my mouth that I can't think of a live unit testing experience extension or anything that I know of that works like that feature in Visual Studio Enterprise.
I guess we could find out.
However,
yeah,
there is a pattern that for you to add unit tests and have them run and have a test explorer like extension.
Right.
That would show you that everything's green. So,
I wonder if this is this is 2018, so it's probably not the right thing.
No, it's still good. It's still, I mean,
well, no, I'm looking to see if they had the official live unit test. Here it is, Visual Studio, but I don't know if it's going to work in code. So, but what I'm
not sure that the experience would be identical, because certainly the live unit testing feature in Visual Studio, which we don't want to dwell on too much because we're not going to show it. People may not know what we're talking about.
I've been using it though.
Right. It's built into Visual Studio. It basically, as you code, lines go red and green to show you that line of code caused your test to fail.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. So my guess is maybe we'll see that in here. I don't know why we wouldn't. But there is live share in here. There's a lot of features in here. Right, that live share is what it's called, right? When we're
live share,
live share.
So Visual Studio Live Share, which we're not set up to demonstrate tonight.
No, I'm just
partially
talking,
because you don't have the
extensions
installed.
Sure,
but that is something we should definitely spend some time with.
Live share's cool.
Because Live Share doesn't really have anything necessarily to do with .NET. It's just about us. It's just the online sharing of the view of your code and even working together on it. It's amazing.
It's a great collaboration tool. Yeah. It's a great way to ask people for help and stuff like that. So
I think in a future episode we're going to have to play with live share.
What did we say last week, right? Put that in. We're going to watch these shows during the week. We'll have to write that down.
We can figure out what the shows are about.
Somebody should write that down.
Because there's certainly Visual Studio feature shows in the future, right?
So so what did I want to see? I wanted to see creating.
But one of your questions was the why. Okay, so for a pure Windows developer, I agree that there's a why question.
Yeah.
If your team, even if your team loves Windows, what if you are absolutely committed to deploying a specific service on Linux?
Right.
Should you only develop that in Windows? Should you sometimes, or maybe you can.
Yeah.
Should you have a Linux VM that you run Visual Studio Code on? These are open questions. There are some teams that I think there is a workflow where you work in Visual Studio, forget Visual Studio Code, and you build your containers, and they probably go out through a DevOps pipeline, and they go off to Linux land, and you're happy, and you go, wow, this is great. I never even touched Linux. But I still think there are quite a few folks, friends of ours in this field, who would say, if you're going to code on Linux, you better test on Linux. In fact, you might even want to develop on Linux. It's certainly a philosophy. You probably want to build on Linux.
Yeah, I could see that,
So maybe having this IDE in another environment enables that transition.
But writing it on Linux, I don't know why, building it is one thing, right? I don't need to write it on Linux.
I think it's fair if you're building in .NET Core,
right,
and the future .NET 5.
.NET 5. Can't wait till we do that talk. Right?
And you're on Windows. The why question could just simply be, I've had enough of a bigger IDE than I need every day.
Yeah.
But other people will say, boy, isn't it wonderful? Because I've certainly been saved by this. In that big old IDE, when exceptions are piling up that in an ASP.NET app are being caught and handled, that I'm still getting a little exception window that's showing that happening.
See, now that's the difference. Right. So I don't get a lot of exceptions when I write code.
I know. But the bug-free code on this side of the table. Sometimes the platform throws exceptions. Even for your perfect code. Right, even your perfect code, the platform might throw an exception because the API you made a network call and the network is fallible.
Or I installed a NuGet package that might have a bug in it or something.
Yeah, but what do we say about the network? The network is fallible.
It's fallible.
So you make a call, connection refused, throws it. I know your code was perfect. I try to write my code
to wrap those things and no, I don't. Right? Obviously, I'm kidding. We're all imperfect, and that's why the tooling helps. But so I don't want to make the case for Visual Studio here, but I don't want to be one of these bandwagon people that say, well, you can't use Visual Studio anymore. Yeah. Visual Studio is a great product.
Sure.
Listen, does it take longer to install Visual Studio than it does VS Code? considerably longer. It's fast, but here's the thing.
But wait.
How often do I install it?
How long did it used to take to install Visual Studio?
They've made
how long does it take today?
They've made great progress.
Right. 5-6 minutes now for complete workloads.
Yeah, but usually I'm doing like a bigger install than that, like a couple of workloads at a time. But here's the thing.
Okay.
Even if, let's say worst case scenario where it's going to take me a half hour, an hour to install Visual, I don't know, right? I don't install it every day. I set up my machine and I've got awesome tooling, right? Okay. You know, so I mean, I think that, you know, there's still a good case for it. However,
let's go back to your screen real quick because there's tooling we didn't even look at.
Oh, so there's more.
So,
but wait,
let's go ahead and actually write some code here.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to see. Right. Okay.
I don't care if you use console or what.
Right.
Use something.
So I'm going to say
console dot string dot format. I don't know. Hit the period and look at that.
So I got console.
We haven't even looked at the IntelliSense like experience.
Right. So here we go. Right line or right is what I want to do. Right. Yep. So it tells me I got 16 overloads.
For right. Yep.
And okay, so it's not a click experience. I wasn't sure. I want to try these things a little bit. Right. Right. And so now here I can see the numbers. I'm using my up-down arrows.
Yep.
And I can see my bool. You know, these are
to go through the overloads of write. Because console
overloads.
write's one of those methods with 50,000.
Yeah, sure. And that's
overloads, right?
Yeah, you don't think about it, but anything you dump into it has to have.
You get this in Visual Studio,
right?
You get this experience of a window that says here are the parameters to the method. Here are some remarks about that method. Yeah. You're getting that in Visual Studio Code.
Right. So I can say, and then I can say, if I want to do something else, string.format in here. Now, let's see. So what do I use tab also? Yeah, I can do tab.
Yeah, you got tab completion.
Or I can do, if I do format, sometimes I just put, yep, I can go right to my semicolon, my paren. I type my paren and it assumed that that's what I wanted.
It assumed that you wanted the top entry
this is the way
from
I typically do this.
Yeah, okay.
right.
You know, that's a shortcut I don't take, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we all have different ways of working, but that's something I use a lot, right? So now I can see what I wanted to see is how my arguments show up here. Yep. So I can put in a like a
the one that you're working on is bolded and underlined. Right now you are working on the format on the string.
This one here. Yeah, this parameter.
You're working on a composite format string called format.
Right.
Who knows whatever you want to put in there.
And so if I put in something that says, hello, I mean, obviously we wouldn't do it this way. We have string interpolation, but let's just say I wanted to do that.
Yep.
Right.
And your next param.
And then my next param, it moves over. It's kind of the experience that I've grown used to.
Yeah.
Right. And I say hello. Hello,
you gotta give it
Rich.
something.
I want to say hello, Rich, because we haven't talked to Rich a lot on today's show. How you doing, Rich?
Now, you're getting a little squiggly at the end of the line because it's not a valid line yet. You need a semicolon.
That's cool, right? This is the kind of stuff that, like, you know, I joked around about saying I don't have errors. Well,
now hold on a second.
I rely really heavily.
While you're hovered there, you hovered over the error. It's like it ran the compiler under the hood and said, you know what's going to happen here? You're going to get a semicolon expected syntax error. If
it's giving me this. It's giving me the actual
error.
Yeah.
You don't always get that kind of experience in Visual Studio.
And if I do peak problem, I just want to see what that did.
What it's specifically doing is it is specifically running the code so that it can determine what's wrong with the code, right?
Yeah. And so I was getting to make the point though that I'm a lazy developer. Like I rely on a lot of these things.
You need Clippy.
I need Clippy.
Just like we're hearing, right? VS Code needs Clippy. It looks like you're trying to write some code. Do you need help?
I really do rely on these kind of things, right?
Let's look at a couple other things. Go down a couple lines and use the var method of declaring some variable.
Okay, var.
And this is I didn't try this out, but I think we're gonna see what I think.
So you want me to like declare like put a string?
Go ahead and make it
like
a string or anything you want. The reason why is I want to go check out what you're seeing on the left hand side. Visual Studio developers are familiar with this. Is when you're on that line of code.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, you got a squiggly under the word name.
Yeah.
But I think what that's going to tell us is that it's not being used.
Yeah, which is great.
So I expected.
Yeah. What I could use it, that'll go away.
I thought that we would still get, if you go click on var.
What were you hoping to see? What I would expect is if I hover over var, it's going to tell me that it's a string, which is what I expect. That's
good,
great. Right. And then what else were you looking to do?
Well, earlier when you were in the middle of typing that line,
you
were getting a light bulb.
Oh, was I getting one of those things that say use like a
like use the explicit.
Right.
Instead.
Well,
and
let's put it this way. Maybe it goes
the
the other
extension
way.
might not do it.
So I got this. Use implicit.
Use
type.
implicit. So it was actually kind of trying to help. It's just that when you finish the work, it said, "Well, I guess that's what you really want."
Yeah, right.
But we get what I can only call light bulb support over on the left side, which is the Clippy of Visual Studio.
It is the
like
Clippy of
it
Visual
looks
Studio,
like
right.
you're trying to unroll a link query. Would you like me to turn that into a for loop? And it'll do that.
Now,
right?
There's a lot of other stuff in Visual Studio that I use. I use like clean up usings and stuff like that, right? So if I had a bunch of usings in here, right? If I put in like I don't know, use
system.text, which I think you don't need. And in Visual Studio, we would expect that to gray out.
Yeah. So let's see what happens. So
because it would say like, well, hey, now hold on a second, you're not actually using this.
Now, okay,
it didn't make it gray, but it does. It still knows.
But there's no question. There's no what do you call it? Light bulb. There's no light bulb there. And it does say no quick fixes available, which seems a little lame because the quick fix would be to delete it.
Delete it, yeah.
So, and I'm not picking on people here, right? There's always work to be done, but it seems like that would be something they could quick fix. Now maybe, and what about over here? So I'm used to seeing, not only am I used to seeing icons over here that say, or graying this out, but sometimes I'd see an indicator in the scroll area that say, here's where you might want to look for a problem in your code.
Now that you've added a second using statement,
now there's a light bulb. Maybe it was catching up.
Yeah, it might have been a little bit of catch up there. Rem says that he wouldn't call you lazy. It's just that over time you become efficient and learn how to make giant leaps in a project.
Thank you.
I think we joke a lot as developers about how in front of a crowd we might say like, well, I want to be lazy and look at how the environment does this for me.
Right.
It's almost like a point of pride, or even just to break the ice with the crowd, right?
Yeah. Right? I mean, here's the thing. Lazy is a word, right? I'm using a word, right? What I'm saying is I like to rely on you could say I like to rely on an abstraction to help me, right? Like I'm not writing machine language, right? We have layers on top of layers. We have frameworks that help us with stuff. We have tools that help us do things, right? Yeah. It's just to make us more efficient. Yeah. Now the problem is you can rely on those as a bit of a crutch and not know your thing. But a lot of people would also argue, what a great learning experience that certain things, maybe not forgetting a semicolon, but certain refactorings that are built in there show you like, oh, there's a better way to do that, or you could try using this other thing instead. There's a fly buzzing.
Yeah, that fly's been. He's been a big part of the show tonight.
Yeah,
buzzing over these the mics. I don't know if he's coming out on the audio. He certainly is interested in Visual Studio Code.
But I do want to say the cool thing is that it's here. And it gave me the thing to do. So
I don't know if that automatic compiling need to catch up.
Who knows?
Write a quick function real fast. Anything. Add two numbers together. Doesn't really matter, because we're missing. It's staring at us in the face, but because we're not actually using the feature, we're not seeing it. So anything, you could just add two numbers together. That's totally fine with me. And then look at this. I've got Andy coding on the spot here. This is his whiteboard interview. Here it goes. He could have done that as an expression bodied.
Well, I'm wondering if I can fix it here.
Look at that.
That's the way I would do it.
Look at that. So it's going to turn what C# developers are used to.
Is this what you were hoping to see?
Yeah. That's actually not what I was going to demo, but it is going to do it. It's going to switch it to an expression bodied method, which JavaScript developers are already used to, like an arrow function.
So this is something that I will say I'm not.
Boom! Look at that.
This is not my go-to.
I know.
No. But I'm saying it's an interesting thing because for some things it's easy. And for some things, it's not maybe not the right way.
That code is essentially equivalent, though. But the reason why I wanted you to create the method is now go use it.
Now go use the method.
Go use it back in main. Here's why. We have not talked at all about CodeLens.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this because it's not static.
We'll make it static.
Right? Yeah, so I'll make it static. I didn't know you wanted me to use it.
Yeah. We have not talked at all about the fact that you have CodeLens-like
look at this
annotations sitting on top of every method, but they've been saying 0 the whole time. And so a Visual Studio developer, again, is used to having, and I'm calling it CodeLens because that's what it's called in Visual Studio. They're used to seeing, now that you've used the method in main, that reference count changed to 1. You could click on it and you're going to find out.
Take me right
it's
up
going to show where is it.
Yeah.
I know simple demo right now.
No.
How many times do you use it in a big project?
All the time.
Right.
This kind of
all
stuff,
the time in a big project.
It's great.
So we've done a lot of
What else
Visual
do I have?
Studio
This is
like
that same one
things
from before.
that.
Look at this. Wrap. What else is this? Align, wrap parameters. Wrap every parameter.
Oh, indent parameters, indent wrap. So this is all
What does this even
styling.
mean? What is that?
It must be that some
This one. Yeah.
developers say, "Hey, I like my code to look like this." Another with the parameters aligned. Another developer will say, I kind of like. What happens is my arm gets cut off here, but it would have been just perfect. I could have just
you got to point like a little bit or whatever. Yeah.
So
I
think that's the key though, is that different developers like different things. Oh, he's gonna try it. He's gonna try.
I got to tell you a story, by the way. Wait, so I got to go to this thing, screen sketch, right?
Okay.
So a lot of people like, this. We were talking on last week's show how cool it is to be able to use like the pen on these things. I have no reason to use it right now,
Just
but isn't it
looking for
cool
an
to be like,
excuse.
oh yeah, I like this one. No, this one, no, forget, right?
Who would ever do this?
Who would ever do that? Yeah, right. Okay. So you're right. So I have that kind of support. Now I've also seen, because I've done JavaScript work in here, if I check this in, I can get that similar kind of support for like the commits and the changes and all that kind of stuff, which is nice.
So I don't think we're going to get that out of the box with Visual Studio Code, but there is a very popular extension for Visual Studio Code called GitLens, which will bring that experience.
Right. But I haven't committed my code,
and more.
So I'm not even in a repo.
Right. The only other thing that we would look at, and maybe we save this for another time, is the difference between you building a web app where when you were to click run, it would actually start the little web server, Kestrel web server locally, and it would bring up the browser, right? Just like you were in Visual Studio, you could set breakpoints on it. And what'll be really fun, I think, is we really should, in the future, do something where the three of us have our screens ready, do some live share, and show the fact that you could be coding, I could set a breakpoint, and then when we're all stepping through the code together, viewing the same site together, it's actually pretty astounding stuff.
So one thing we didn't talk about, which I think is kind of, maybe it's relevant. You'll tell me. I'm going to ask a question. You can tell me if we skip it or not. But tasks.json. Right, we talked about launch.json.
So let's go.
We didn't really talk about like what this file is doing.
The subtle difference between launch and tasks. Launch are configurations that get used by the debug, by the play button, and you kind of see what tasks are now. So when we're in .NET, we can build, we can run, we can do all these things. So tasks.json lets you set those up, and we're not really going to be able to get into it, but you could use that command palette to like build from there, run from there.
So that's what the tasks are what I'm used to seeing in tasks when we would do, even in Visual Studio, we have Task Explorer, you have certain things, right? Similar kind of concept.
It's a little like in an NPM package JSON where you put scripts in there. It's a little like that.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. So the difference is the tasks, so I could have the same things in tasks and in launch, I guess. But launch allows me to come up to this thing. So launch is for this right here. For launching, right in this debug thing. And then there's a couple other things. Like, I'm curious to see what else. Oh, that was this. Oh, this gear just took me into here. That's interesting, right? When I went in, I would love to, we didn't do breakpoints, but we could look at variables in here.
Watch windows, you can set watches, you have your call stack.
All exceptions.
So pretty impressive, right?
This is great. I think this is an experience that I could, start to use. Now I've been using, what do you call it? Nothing like a good brain fart when you're on the screen here.
You've been using Writer.
No, stop! Don't say. No, stop! Don't do that. I hate when people do that. Like I'm trying to. Who's that actor? And you just start naming people. Like stop saying names. App Insights, right?
Oh, okay.
And I'm used to like in Visual Studio that App Insights experience that you get built in and stuff like that. Maybe there's an App Insights plugin for this.
Application Insights to monitor your deployment out to Azure, just to put it in a nutshell, right?
Well, but you can also use it live, like when you're debugging. You can use the App Insights. I don't know if that's SKU related or something like that, but is that like enterprise? Looking at Rich, no. I don't know. I like to throw Rich on.
We put Rich on the spot. We say every once in a while, we say, "Come on, Rich, just tell us."
Rich. What do you think, Rich? Do you use VS Code a lot?
I do. Well, not to the extent that you were doing there. And
Right.
boy, I have a weird
Ooh, you're
light.
green, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Wasn't like that
Got the
before.
green.
You
know,
This is what happens when
you
we ask
work.
Rich to
When-
come out of from behind and come up. It all goes to
He's
hell.
like, I
at
haven't.
that point.
He's like, I haven't even looked at my view tonight,
No.
and I
Yeah.
didn't
No, we did.
realize.
We
just
proto- we
letting
just-
you guys do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is his Halloween costume this year. He's going.
He's the Hulk.
All right, I'm gonna swap out of
Don't
that.
make him mad.
I don't know what we did.
Do not make him
Uh.
mad, or he will go Hulk on you. I think this is an experience that I would be comfortable starting to use and see where it goes from there. It would be nice because I like other things about VS Code. Like I said, I like the experience for JavaScript and TypeScript and things like that. So I want to take this a little further and dive into that solution experience in here a little bit more.
Okay.
And see how that works and
Yep.
see, is there like such a thing as like a startup project? Like, you know, that whole concept in Visual Studio, I have 4 projects. When I hit the run button, well, maybe that's
That would
what the
be launch
configuration.
configuration.
Launch
Yep.
configuration. I'm going to say this is the one I want to launch, right? So it
You
seems
could
like
launch an XC, but attach to the class library that you really want to debug, which is something that we do.
So you couldn't just automatically debug.
Well,
Why
so
would you need to
let
do
me
that?
let
Yeah.
me be careful to say that I'm not 100% sure that I have the limitations correct.
Yeah.
But you might want to attach to well, in your workspace you might have 2 XEs, and what if your launch task actually fires up a service that the client code relies on, but you want to debug the client code?
So let me ask this in different, and you already said you're not positive on some of this stuff, but let me ask the question. So imagine I have 2 projects, and one is referenced by the other. Now, you don't do project references, I guess, the same way. Well, I guess you do, right? The CS project file is going to know I'm referencing the other project, right?
If they're in the same
So I've
solution,
got, but let's say here we don't have solutions, right?
Yeah.
But so do we have the same thing? We still have project references between one and another, right?
Yeah.
So if I write a library and then I'm using it in the, let's say the UI project or something like that, if I hit a breakpoint in the UI project, I can still step into the library, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't need to do anything special
I can't set
for
it
that.
up for you right now.
No, but I would
But
I would
yes.
expect to be able to do that.
I think as
as a-
long as
as-
the library is in process, then there's no
Yeah,
problem,
it's
which
in
is the same
process, right,
experience
yeah.
in
Yeah.
Visual Studio.
Anyway,
right?
I'll play around with it.
There's a lot of things that we didn't get to talk about tonight. For example, little things that'll help you out if
Sure.
you install Visual Studio previews. Like if you've been installing Visual Studio 2019 preview, then you're getting .NET Core 3 previews on your machine. And this has hit me. This is actually just arrow right between the eyes.
Yeah.
Is then I'll come out to .NET New, and I'll say, but wait a second, I want 2.2.
Oh,
What do I do?
Yeah, right.
And it turns out that what you do there is you create a global.json file, which can be done from command line. And only because somebody like me doesn't remember how to create a global.json file all the time, and I don't feel like looking up the docs.
Yeah.
So I say .NET New global JSON,
Yeah.
and you supply the version, and it says, okay, I created a global JSON in this folder that references 2.2, and now, because look, right now you got pushed to 3.0 preview 9 because it's your latest.
So the naming there's my brain has a little trouble with it 'cause you called something. Yeah,
That's something only a .NET Core.
yeah, but you called it global,
Mhm.
but it's specific to that folder, and that to me that naming sounds wrong. That sounds like it's a local.
Like, why is
configuration.
global.json?
Global sounds like when I'm installing something globally, it's available everywhere.
You're right. It's global configuration for that workspace / project. But
Yeah.
yes, I hear what you're saying. .NET has a concept of global tools. So
Yeah.
like, for example, in NPM, a lot of people are very used to saying npm install
-G,
/g, and they're not even doing something. You're not even including libraries in your project. You just want something tool-like.
Right, tooling.
There's
exactly.
a .NET equivalent.
like NuGet, something you would do like
Yeah, like
G or something.
although some of those have been brought in, like .NET Watch is a super popular one, where .NET Watch basically launches the app, and then every time you hit save, recompiles the app, relaunches the web browser. It's pretty cool stuff.
Hey, I don't know how we're doing. I just said NuGet. Like, what's my NuGet experience? I want to add a NuGet package. Do I have like a NuGet Explorer? Is that also up in that Control Shift, what is that, F or something to get me up in that top line or something like that?
I think what you would really do is go to the package JSON. I'm sorry, package JSON, the project JSON, the CS proj file,
and you can add it right in here. And you get like help in here, don't you?
Yeah, so it's not in property group.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure there's a new node called package references or something like that.
Let's see if it tells us anything.
I'm not sure if you get
I don't know if you get
IntelliSense on
that
this.
here. No, doesn't seem like it.
And it's only because I don't remember where it is.
Well, we can look at.
I'm
but
also
is
not
there
sure
also
if
like
there's
an
a command line
extension for
experience.
like NuGet?
So back,
There's so many things.
I
that can be
remember
done
back in
here.
the project.json days,
Yeah,
you got IntelliSense help for even the names of the projects.
that's probably what. Yeah, right. NuGet Package Manager.
There you go.
Add or remove
but
.NET Core 1.
I don't know about it being .NET Core 1.1 package
that's what I was looking at. It
references.
says plus. It says plus.
You think just the NuGet extensions or NuGet reverse package? Which one do you like there?
4. The fourth one. 1, 2, 3,
NuGet.
4. That's not
That
it.
one. Oh, look at that, Jess Chadwick.
Oh, hey.
NuGet
Our friend
reverse
Jess
pack.
Chadwick
What did
wrote
he
this one.
write? Because he must have thought of something.
NuGet
reverse package search.
Look at this. He's got 23,000 downloads. Our friend. We're gonna have to. I feel like we should add this just to give him another point in here. What does it do?
Oh, I see.
Adds reverse
So-
.NET Core package lookup support, like the add.
Yeah. When you type some code that you think should work, but OmniSharp tells you that it's not valid, it basically goes and looks it up.
Oh, that's a great
Yeah.
feature.
It goes and
Yeah.
figures out. Sure.
And I've seen that in Visual Studio
Yeah.
where it says, oh, you might want to add something. And how cool is that that's even possible? By the way,
Yeah.
that's a.
And our friend Jess did that. Yeah.
And our friend Jess did that.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Friend
yeah.
of the Tech Bash conference.
I was talking to Jess last week, and he's dying to come on. Like he'd be a great guest.
Yeah.
We got the Skype thing working.
We
can
haven't
get him in
figured
here.
out guests yet. We haven't figured out some of the remote aspects of the show, which we need to do for next week. By the way,
We do.
that's sort of talking about our laundry here a little bit on the show, but we do need to figure out how we're going to do the show next week, I guess.
Yeah, we know that not every show will be able to do at the top of this tall Microsoft building with the view out into the Malvern
You can
suburbs.
see far out there.
Yeah,
too.
it's
Look at that.
amazing what we
Is that-
can see
Yeah.
from up this high,
From this high.
on the first floor of the Malvern MTC. But in those cases, we still want to keep going, and we know we have to figure out that. I don't know that it's Skype, but something.
We need to
Something.
do something. We need to figure it out
together.
soon.
Yeah.
Like in 7 days.
7 days, right.
So there's a lot of topics that I think that we would look at on the show, and that we came out of this conversation. I think it's interesting to see a lot of your reaction to using Visual Studio Code for C#. And really part of the reason that I started looking at it more is that as somebody who was building the hands-on labs back in all these years of previews of .NET Core, I knew, so here's an interesting use case. I knew that some of the developers coming to the meetup, their laptops would be ready to go with Visual Studio. And guess what? You needed a preview version to do what we were doing that night if you wanted to do it in Visual Studio. But I also knew that a very quick download of, and they probably had Visual Studio Code, but a very quick download of the C# extension and the .NET Core SDK preview, and they're up and running and able to follow along.
Right.
So it was kind of a way, somebody walks in the door and they would look up and say, oh my gosh, do I need a special version of Visual Studio? And say, hey, go to the instructions. We have a way for you to do this in VS Code tonight. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? Spend another, I know I just bragged about how quick it was. But if everyone in the room is downloading it at once, it's, who knows?
Do you know if there's a way to share in a file? And I feel like I saw this in a demo once, but let's just say that in order to use this thing, I want to make sure that I have the following 10 extensions installed.
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like the C# extension, the Git lens,
Extensions being like part of your profile that travel with you.
Yeah, and then you could walk in for a demo like that and
Right.
you say, everybody, I posted a file. All you got to do is like run this file and you'll get all the extensions you need.
As long as I can remember, whenever one of the Visual Studio main contributors, the people running the project, like a Chris Diaz, is ever on any kind of Ask Me Anything format, like say the build conference talking with Seth Juarez or something, that question would come up. So I think it's a pretty popular ask. I don't know where the product is on that, because
Who did
I
you
hear
say
what
that?
you're
What was
saying.
the name you said?
Chris Diaz is
I
a
thought
program
you were
manager.
Chris Diaz.
No, I'm not.
Who are you?
I'm Chris Gomez. Not Chris
Gomez.
Diaz.
Yeah, Diaz, Gomez.
He's a program manager on the Visual Studio Code team. There's several that I kind of have sort of follow what they have to say and things like that. But
You get my name wrong, so I thought I'd try to. Wasn't that funny? I guess.
yeah. We'll take a look. We'll take a look at some other great features of this too. But
There's a lot.
But I think we kind of exhausted at getting started and maybe
something to play around with.
What you might do with this, and glad for all the participation that we had tonight from Rem. Thanks for a lot of the questions. They were good starters for us. Good
we had a bunch of viewers on too, by the way. So for those of you that didn't make a comment, feel free to say hi or leave us a note or ask a question.
Well, and it helps us too, because I always try to remember that not everybody watching watched last time. Not everybody watching has used the product. Not everybody watching might be a developer, but we want the show to be for everybody. So it's important that we have everybody's support. Since I'm a phony,
He's a phony.
Squad about coding.
We're all phonies.
Well, don't worry, neither do I. So maybe we'll close this out. I don't know if you want to just search for this real quick, because I don't have my.
You're not hooked up to the screen here, but I can
today, which is okay.
I can do this.
So. A lot of times, I'm trying to keep the momentum going on what we're watching, and it's a segment that we do at the end.
Channel is it a channel?
Which is no, just if you just search for.
That I couldn't see
tutorial,
that.
And then maybe his name. I bet you it comes up in your favorite search engine as the first hit, and then we'll just take a look. So we've tried to pick out maybe some videos, something we're reading, something that it doesn't have to be current. It could be current, and it's just something that you might be interested in. And I think on a future show,
get a commercial here,
or maybe at a future conference near you, we might talk about a little game called Minecraft, because Minecraft. It's this. You ever heard of Minecraft before?
That.
Yeah.
It was
only the number one PC game of all time, which I thought was going to be caught by PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, but I think.
Wait, did you say it's the number one?
It was, and I think still is the number one selling PC game of all time. Okay. And I want to be very clear when I say that. That's the Java version that kicked this thing off. That has nothing to do with sales for the Windows 10 edition, the editions on consoles, the editions on your phones, the editions on your Switch, the editions on your everything. Nothing to do with that. That's just the original edition of the game. Was the number one selling PC game of all time. I thought it was going to be caught by this little battle royale game called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which seemed to lose some momentum just as it was getting within a few million.
Am I not on the same one you were on? I think.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So this video is a Bedrock scripting tutorial. What does that mean? Well, there is an edition of the game that runs on Xbox One. It runs on Nintendo Switch and on Android and iOS. It's called the Minecraft Bedrock Edition, although you don't ever see that terminology in the stores. It's just called Minecraft. It was essentially a unified version of the game. That's where a lot of the investment is going forward. But make no mistake, the Java version is still alive and kicking, and investment is made in both. In fact, sometimes features end up in one first and then they come to the other. Okay. But that's not the point. The point is because there's a little bit of a unified platform, Minecraft became very popular for modding. Yeah. People want to write, they want to create their own creatures called mobs. They want to modify the gameplay. They want to create different kinds of adventures. People have started entire companies creating Minecraft servers that add new types of mini games that are super extremely popular. And for some reason we got kicked off.
No, it's the video.
Oh, the video ended.
The video. No,
sorry, the video is moving on.
This is part of the video. I know it threw me off for a second.
This video on YouTube, the Bedrock scripting tutorial, will get you started with the scripting API and extensibility in the Minecraft game that you can play on Windows 10 or on your Xbox One or on your Switch, or that unified version called the Bedrock Edition. We could do a whole show on the fragmentation of Minecraft and all the different ways to mod. But what's exciting to me about this is that while there's nothing wrong with modding the Java edition, it took a little bit of an engineering background to get something like the old bucket system or the more modern Forge and then get Eclipse going if you maybe want a Java IDE, and then understanding how to get all those mods to work together. This new system, because it's kind of built into the game, first of all, the language of choice is JavaScript. And so what I believe is this will be very accessible for a target audience that, I'm pretty passionate about, is kids.
Oh, sure.
And over all the years that I've done a lot of the Kids Can Code events, a lot of parents have come up to me and said, do you ever think we could do something about Minecraft modding?
Yeah.
Because my son, my daughter, my niece, my nephew, they love Minecraft. And I say, yeah, but wow, I don't know that I want to bring that complexity to the table.
It's a lot.
Kind of tough.
But JavaScript's become like the de facto first language now, right?
It could be, right? A lot of people might be starting in it. So what's really exciting is this gentleman here is doing a tutorial about how you can get started modding your Windows 10 edition of Minecraft, the edition you might have on your machine right now. And what he did is you have to take certain JavaScript files and stuff and put them into certain places in the file directory structure. And you know what? Who wants to learn all that? So what he did is he built an NPM package, which will build a project template.
Yeah.
And when you NPM run, it automatically knows how to place things into your game. So that way you can ignore all that and just concentrate on what it is you want to do, extend the game.
Really?
And so I liked this guy's video because he published it earlier this year, and he's basically demonstrating here's how to get started scripting Minecraft, which I think is something we might look at here, or something that might make its way to some of our kids' events. So
it sounds like it would be a fun night. Like, we've got a lot of ideas for shows. This show is called the Dev Talk Show. Right? It's not necessarily. There's so many things we could talk about. This is dev. This fits right in. I think it would be interesting. Like you said, I think I get that question a lot when it comes to kids. Can we do Minecraft? So, have you gone past the video yet on this?
So first, I was fighting to try to figure out where to place files and whatever. And when I found this gentleman's work, I said, "Oh wow, he's done a lot of the heavy lifting."
Okay,
which is really great. And yeah, it's kind of like what you would expect. Just the way you would capture events in any of the systems you work with every day. You basically subscribe to events in Minecraft. A block was broken. What do I want to do about it? Do I want to see what kind of block it is? Was it near a player? Maybe I'm creating some new kind of block that bursts into flames when a player touches it with a torch. I don't know.
Right. Do
what you want. So it might be fun to create a couple things that are different, unique, and get people started modding Minecraft, which is
and we can just put it right into Xbox.
So it works best on Windows 10 edition today. I have not tried. So I've got this. So for one thing, there's a problem on some of these console editions, is that they won't connect to private servers, but the Windows 10 edition will. So on Windows 10, I could host a game on my own private server, give you the IP address, you can connect to it. What I haven't tried yet.
So you need to have your own private server.
You could, but you don't have to, because here's what I haven't tried. I haven't tried running some experimental script on a Windows 10 game that I host. I'm not running a server now, I'm just running a game, then invite you to the game while you're sitting on Xbox and see if that stuff syncs up.
Ooh, yeah, that's interesting.
There's some issues about it, having to do with beta versions versus not beta versions. I think if I were to just give anyone advice today, use this on the Windows 10 edition of Minecraft. I think that's your best bet right now. It's a rapidly maturing part of the ecosystem that I think will eventually lead to people running their own private servers. Whether or not those servers will be accessible by game console platforms is not an issue of technology. That's an issue of the legalities of protecting the users on these platforms. Where PC users, kind of tend to play on my server, play on that server,
right.
Yeah. So, but I thought this was a great video.
Nice.
It's by Stephen Blom, the Bedrock scripting tutorial, and it gets you started modding Minecraft.
I look forward to hearing a little bit more about that. Do like a little quick demo or something for the show. It'd be fun. Yeah. So I feel like I learned a lot on this show. I like selfishly, I like to learn stuff.
Yeah. Right.
Like we like to be presenting. But it's great when I can learn something. Maybe.
And sometimes we figure things out together. We've got some great past episodes where we figured out how to build Azure pipelines, and sometimes struggled with and watched our website not appear, and then we figured out
Yeah, so where would I find those past episodes?
Well, so we are on YouTube at youtube.com, but we don't quite have enough subscribers yet to get that nice ending URL, the Dev Talk Show. So,
but one of the things we can do, and we were talking about, Andy and I were talking about this beforehand, is actually get we own the domain, the devtalkshow.com, and then just make it video.thedevtalkshow.com.
Right.
We'll take you right to it.
Which we should do. And if you're watching this video now, we should have in the future
already done this.
We should have already done this. And
well, we'd have to do something else too. Like we'd have to get our website actually out there.
Well, you don't need a website
you don't
to do
need
that.
it for the subdomain, but it would be nice if we put that website out there somewhere.
And then a little graphic that we could bring up right when you ask that pertinent question. So
be awesome.
But I think we've got, I mean, it's work in progress, and I think we learn a little bit every episode. So any feedback that you have, please be sure to leave us in the comments on YouTube. If you're watching in the future, it's great to hear from you, and hopefully you got a little bit better weather than we did tonight. At least when I was driving down here. And
I was worried that the power was going to go off in the building or something like that, because the lightning was unbelievable.
Yeah, so if you are watching, hopefully, in just a couple of weeks, .NET Core 3 will be out, and we're probably going to spend a lot of time talking about that. And at the same time, we're happy to talk about different topics and even welcoming folks that are new to coding by trying out things that might be considered on-ramps to a development career. So please let us know what you want to learn. If you're watching on YouTube, down in the comments below, and by hitting that like button helps us, and more people find the show, and hitting the subscribe button if you're on YouTube.
We get our vanity URL.
Let's get closer to that. And if you're watching us on Mixer or Twitch, then following us there will let you know when we go live, and as we try to use the features of those platforms too. So anything else? Does anybody else have anything tonight, or are we good until next week? We're going to try to do the same thing next week. We know we have to do it remotely. We won't be here high atop the first floor of the Malvern MTC with the view out the window. So if that's it for tonight, I want to say first of all, I want to say thanks to Rich, who kept all of our scenes changed and the green screen work for us to be able to look like we're part of the code, and Andy for being willing to actually specifically say, I'm not going to look into how to do this so that I can react. I can react realistically to what the experience is like, which I think is great.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Yeah. So thanks, Andy, and thanks, Rich. And so on their behalf, I'm Chris Gomez, and we will see you next time on the Dev Talk Show.